It's a black man Sunday. Time to put all childish things away. I refuse to be the man I was yesterday. Gotta put my best foot forward and elevate.
I told people that everybody on this call can be a millionaire in 5 years. And I go back to Google tax deed sales and then Google tax lien sales. All of the information is on YouTube. We don't have to reinvent the wheel. We can duplicate success. So I'm telling you, I'm telling you that it's possible, not just because I know about it, it's because I do it, right? And so I'm giving you game that most people aren't going to give you. And to your point, what you're talking about earlier, wealthy people aren't necessarily going to give us the answer, right? A lion isn't going to tell a gazelle how to get away. With knowledge is power. And historically, in order to keep power, you keep knowledge. And that's why I'm like Robin Hood. I rob from the rich and give to the poor. And so that's what this is about, right? And so we can't expect the wealthy to teach middle class or lower socioeconomic folks the keys, right? Because we become competition. If they taught us everything it is to know to how to start a business, we may start a business that's their competition. And because this is Black Men Sunday, if our business is targeting Black folks, right? People of color, they're going to be the majority, like 2040, 2045, right? Right now, Black folks make up around 14% of the US, Hispanics around about 19, 20%, and Asian make about 8%. If wealthy gave all of those folks the information, the majority, who are mainly white, may not be the powerhouse that they are now, right? Because we may become competition. So I think it's imperative that we share this knowledge amongst each other.
You know, it's interesting you say that. Have you ever noticed when you go into certain communities, you see like a beauty supply store or a Chinese restaurant, all these people, they doing exactly the same thing that you're saying. They pool their money together. When you go to a Chinese restaurant or a beauty supply store, it's the same. They use the same supplier and they fund their own store. They feed back to each other. You know, you go to, I mean, the menus all look the same. The tables look the same. Everything is identical. And it's amazing how they're able to come together and be able to work on their, being financially secure. But we as a people, we don't do that. We'd like to, try to tear each other down and look down on someone when they're trying to do well. So, sometimes you just have to kind of look and watch how other cultures do their thing to learn, the best way of strategizing in order to, build wealth in your community. And that's one thing I hate to see,
Yeah, I'll bring it back to like the African Babylonian days and Mansa Musa and things like Black folks. If you look at Egypt, that's Africa, right? Egypt isn't just a country, that's in Africa. There's a lot of wealth still in Africa. There was advanced civilizations, like a lot of mathematics and science came from Africa, right? And we know that because of slavery and all of these different things, power has shifted, right? It wasn't that we didn't know this information. It was that information was taken away and withheld, right? And so I do think that there's a resurgence of getting this information back and trying to level the wealth gap, right? Because like I said, by 2053, Black wealth will be down to 0 in the United States, right? So we're not on a good path, but together we can do anything. And there's that African proverb that say, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, you go together, And so when Corey reached out to me, he's like, look, I want you to pull up. It's like, we're going to do it together, right? When I sent out a text blast to 5,000 of my people from my financial literacy course, I said, Corey, I got it. I'm gonna pull up. Everybody isn't, willing to get the information and receive it. Sometimes you're going to be on a different page at a different time, right? But on this call, I invited via text over 5,000 people. There's only going to be, everybody can't be a CEO, you know, but can the CEOs get together, and can the CEOs find a good team around them in order to create change in the community? And I think we only need a couple leaders, right? If I can educate, like I said, 20,000 from my bedroom with my wife's help, we can do anything, right? We just need to find the people on our frequency and wavelength. And so don't go out there and try to find somebody that's not on the same page and same book. Figure out people that's on the same frequency, same wavelength, going in the same direction, but also that have strengths and skills and capabilities that you don't have. And so, like, I don't know how to do podcasts, but I can go to Corey, right? Corey can teach me something in about 30 minutes that may take me, 3 months or maybe even 3 years to figure out. And some of the stuff that I just told you, and like I only explained it in a couple minutes around tax deeds and tax liens, it may have taken you like 20 years to even know that that existed, right? So how can we duplicate success and not reinvent the wheel, come together as one, because we're powerful together? We just need to understand, like, we're expending all of our energy trying to bring everybody up. There's a saying that even though the trees and the grass come from the same place, they're not on the same level, right? You can come from the same neighborhood, the same city, the same ethnic group, but everybody's not going to have that zero mindset. And zero mindset is something that I coined, where just like, I'm giving myself zero excuses. I'm only coming solution based. It is like zero problems. Like, find a problem and think of 10 solutions. Like, when you get around those kind of people, the Coreys of the world, the Erics of the world, the Callies of the world, you guys are going to be like unstoppable, and so that's the only reason that we've been able to do everything that we've done. Shout out to T.I. I was just hanging out with him at the Congressional Black Caucus. Cool Kids sponsored one of the receptions that he actually performed at, met a bunch of senators and legislators. This is what we need to do in order to come together,
Could Dr. Phillip go a little deeper in how to utilize the credit cards for purchasing real estate? I mean, people speak about it and they make it seem so easy, but no one really gives the direct, play for it.
Yeah, so this is the thing. So you have personal credit cards, or you can get business credit as well. And so one of those master classes, we teach you how to get business credit, right? So let's just say you have $20,000 balance on your personal, and maybe your business credit you have 20 or 30,000. Now, with tax deed sales, particularly, you can, and even let's go tax liens, right? If your credit card is charging you 18%, but you're in a state where they're going to give you, for a tax lien, 25% rate of return, you can take money off of your credit card, and there's websites that allow you to do that. They take usually like a 3% fee. They'll let you take that whole $20,000 off of your credit card. They'll charge you 3%. The crazy thing, and I know people who do this, that they actually, it looks like a retail transaction. So you actually get points in the process. So you're taking money off your credit card with a third party company. You get that check. And let's say the credit card company is charging you 18%. If you're investing it at 25 to 30% into real estate, then you're making more. Like, when I go back to inflation versus having your money in the bank, long as the interest you're making is higher than the interest you're being charged, it doesn't matter, right? Because you're using other people's money. But that's just from your personal. Now you get a business credit card and you're pulling money from there. On these tax deed sales, these tax lien sales, you're buying properties for pennies on the dollar. In my town, just the other day, I just wanted to show my buddy an example. There was 2 pieces of land that were being sold, fairly affluent area that I'm in, but it was being sold on a tax deed sale. It sold for $17,000. That land is worth about $50,000 to $60,000. There was another one that sold for $2,000. Now, this land is in a pretty impoverished area, so it's probably only worth about, let's say that land that was sold for $2,000, maybe only worth around $20,000 now. But with gentrification, because we live in an affluent area, even that area that's in the hood is close to all of these luxury amenities. 10 years from now, that's going to get gentrified, and that $2,000 property that you got on a tax deed sale will probably be worth 60 or 70,000, maybe more. And so you can, and let's say you decide to flip property. You can buy something on your credit card, right? Pull out the money, buy it on your credit card, go buy one of these tax properties, flip it, pay your credit card back, and now you still have cash to spend to go invest in something else. So I'm not saying to utilize credit cards all the time. Another strategy you can use is if you have a 401k, you can get a 401k loan. Right about now, I think it's probably 8 to 9% interest that they charge you to get a 401k loan. Now, this is not a taxable event. So this is not something that I'll call it that you'll have to pay taxes on later because it's a loan, right? If you cash out of your 401k, it's a taxable event, but getting a 401k loan is not, right? So let's say you said, okay, I want to pull some of my 401k money, right? I got 20,000 that they'll give me for a 401k loan, and I want to go buy some of these tax deed properties or some of these tax lien properties. Well, you go flip it, right? Pay your 401k back. Now you still have the cash. Or you just decide, like, I'm just going to use that money and keep flipping it. I don't want to pay the 401k loan back because they're only charging me 9% interest, and I'm out here making 100%. 200% on my money. So it just depends on how you want to do it. So hope that answered the question, but look at how you can utilize other people's money, and that's how the wealthy do it. That's why they don't pay down their property. They just keep pulling money out of it like it's a bank and then go buying other assets.
Right. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I've used my 401 for investments, but it's just always that I think where I get stuck is pulling it off the credit card. Just use an example of just buying the land, right? So I'm buying the land, but I'm not getting income off that land coming in. So now I'm paying that credit card back with what? That's
Yeah.
where I get a little.
Yeah, and that's a great question. I can tell you that we bought some land earlier in the year for $13,000 in Florida. We sold the land, I think 4 months later for $60,000. And so, it's like, so you may have, but if you hold something for less than a year, you're gonna have to pay more taxes on it. If you hold it for longer than a year, it's less taxes. But we flipped it because we had another property. So we basically bought something for around 13,000, flipped it for 60,000, and then we went and bought, with that 60,000 and some other assets, we went and bought another property cash. So there's different ways you can do it, right? But when you're buying property at such a depressed value, real estate is crazy, and not a lot of people know about tax deeds and tax liens. So when you can buy a piece of real estate for pennies on a dollar, you can easily flip it, right? And it's just like all of the information is online, right? You can do quick claim deeds. You can do a whole host of different things in order to sell the property. We actually bought this land. The only thing we did, and we never actually went to go see the land, by the way. We did our research online. We looked at all of the tax records. We did a Google Street View, so we knew the neighborhood. We did a satellite view of the neighborhood. And there's different things which you call doing your due diligence. We did our due diligence, and we knew that we were going to go up to $20,000 on this land because we knew the land was worth 60, right? Just so happens that we outbidded everybody and it was only 13,000. Well, but we did our homework before we bought that land because we knew there were active pieces of property that were selling for 50 to 60,000 with the same dimensions blocks away. But most people don't know that they can buy real estate through tax deeds and tax liens, right? So the fact that you bought it at 13,000 doesn't mean anything. It's still worth 60,000, So when you do your homework, you'll factor in all of those things, and then hopefully you won't, if you decide to buy it and flip it, you won't have that property for too long. So you can pay back your 401k, you can pay back your credit cards and things like that. So lots of different strategies out there, but part of it is just knowing your comparable market analysis. And I would say that the people that everybody on this call should have on speed dial, you are like these 5 people. Your wealth will be determined by these 5 people, right? You need a realtor, you need an accountant, you need a certified public advisor or a certified financial planner. You need an estate planning attorney, and you need somebody that, like, maybe even a business lawyer that can get you, you know, all of the different things that you need to do to protect yourself. Those are the people that we should have on our team, right? And so you'll have your phone a friend group. There's a book called What Would the Rockefellers Do? And shout out to my buddy in Atlanta. He's a certified financial advisor, Sean. He's the one who gave me the game. He said, "Go read this book. It'll explain you the game. It'll teach you about all of these things about what the Rockefellers did versus what the Vanderbilts did." And in that book, it talked about surrounding yourself with these people and how you can protect your wealth for generations. And the Vanderbilts didn't do that, and that's why they're broke. And the Rockefellers still have, hundreds of billions of dollars, probably trillions at this point.
And someone just recommended that book literally on Thursday. So that must be a hot one.
Yeah, so two books that are a must read is that one, What Would the Rockefellers Do? And another book called The Power of Zero. The Power of Zero tells you about some tax strategies. I briefly mentioned it about how you can pay zero taxes. Like, the majority of people are going to be paying taxes once they cash out their 401k. There are ways you can be in a zero tax bracket when you're in retirement, and that's with a Roth IRA, because you already paid taxes on it, a Roth 401k, because you already paid taxes on it, or a whole life insurance where you're pulling money out. And so when you pull money out of a life insurance policy, that's not a taxable event. And so those are three things that the wealthy use so that they don't pay taxes. And like, once you know about it, like I gave it to you, I gave you the spoiler, but those three vehicles allow you not to pay any taxes once you're in retirement. But if you think that a traditional 401k is the way to go, and you're not investing into a Roth 401k, which has no taxes when you take it out, you don't have the full picture. And so, like, having people around you with the knowledge, they'll give you the game. And then with that game, you can create change.
Michael Thompson from Talladega, Alabama. Corey, I want to thank you for creating this platform. I think it's wonderful for the outlet of information that you're bringing to the community. And I want to thank Eric Player for inviting me to this particular forum. Dr. Marlin, Dr. Fuller, one of the things that, as you've been talking and been explaining things, one of the things that comes to mind as the previous questions was asked was centered around credit and how to leverage credit. And you mentioned about business and credit cards. And also you spoke about, tax liens and how to acquire different assets or properties. Maybe you can afford the community here today to expound on that as it relates to leveraging lines of credit, and how lines of credit basically at a lower, interest rate can give you an advantage from that standpoint, and how that can be an advantage to you, as well as looking at different properties that you may be looking at, and having a realtor or somebody on your team that has some kind of insight on different zonings, right? When you're gaining a property and you have a zoning, and there may be a mall coming in the next 6 months because they're paying attention to the advancement of that community, a repurposing of that, which will give you a exponential amount of investment, windfall, if you're able to time that and get that money, get that property and sit on it, as well as acquiring properties. And maybe not necessarily if you have a tenancy or a structure on that property, that it affords you more value in going into a bank to get more lines of credit, rather than it be if it's just a plain slate of field, because you're showing purpose and utilization. And I'll leave it at that, and maybe that'll give a lot of things for you to be able to afford the community on as far as strategies. Thank you.
Yeah, Mr. Thomas, thank you for that. And so you mentioned a couple of different things. I'll talk about the lines of credit, right? Is if you get a home equity line of credit on your house, it's going to be at a very cheaper interest rate than a credit card, right? And so I know not everybody owns real estate, but let's say if you did own real estate, your home equity line of credit, a few years ago would have been more like 4 or 5%. Now it may be 7 to 9% for a home equity line of credit, but it's still much cheaper than using a credit card, which is charging you in some cases 30% nowadays, maybe a little bit higher. Going with the 401k loan, at 7 to 9%. I don't know the exact rates that are right now, but I'd say I think it's around 8 or 9%. Much cheaper than utilizing a credit card, right? So where can you get money, other people's money, and acquire it at a lower interest rate is always going to be primary. But for those who don't have a 401k, those who don't own property, I would say, look into a credit card. Look into your family, look into your circle. Do you have people around you that'll give you a loan, an agreement? Do you have a uncle, a business owner, an aunt, a grandparent, somebody that can give you a loan? Or can you pool your efforts? We talked earlier about, everybody coming together. It takes a village. Is there a group of friends that you have that each one of you contribute $2,000? 5 of you have 10,000 together, and you start buying some of these tax deed liens and some of these properties via that vehicle. I did like the thought where you said, can you get loans on property? So the bank is going to give you something that has utilities and is up and running. Let's say if it's a rundown place in Indiana, it's only worth $20,000 because it has a hole in the roof but it's a house on the property. Because it's a house on the property, it has some kind of utilities. So it's going to have generally electrical, may or may not have water, so it may be well. It may or may not have public sewer, may have a septic on it. But because it has a lot of the infrastructure in place, you may be able to go to the bank and say, I bought this, $15,000, and they don't care how much you bought it for. They just know the value of it, right? Can you give me a loan or equity line of credit or a rehab? And there's all kind of rehabs you can do. There's even rehabs like a 203B loan that you can get to convert a single family into a duplex, or a duplex into a triplex. I think it goes up to, you can make a fourplex out of it. There's loans out there that they'll give you in order to rehab properties. And then I think your last point is just about just being able to hold on to land. So, but besides that team that I talked about, who you should have around you, and you mentioned like a realtor, right? Realtors generally know what's going on. You need to be researching what's the master plan developments and things like that. So the town zoning and planning office are some folks that you may want to have on your team, or you may need to do Google alerts to get you the up to date as to what's happening in a particular county that you're looking at. But you follow the money. If a big development, or somebody's going to spend $200,000 to create a condo complex in that area, if somebody's spending $200 million for a condo complex, if they're putting that money there, that may be some place that you should look at too, right? Because all of those places, let's say it's a huge complex, they're going to need supermarkets, resources, they're going to need services. So you're going to start seeing grocery stores, gas stations, schools, and all of that stuff. Once they get the infrastructure there, then people are followers. They're like, okay, somebody has to do it. Like, I'm in Orlando, Florida. This was nothing out here but land before Walt Disney bought up thousands of acres of land. So the reason that people are here now is because one person saw a vision. Now, these investors, these big groups, they see the vision. They did the homework, right? When you see them putting money somewhere, but it's because they know 10, 15, 20 years from now, maybe it's a Orlando of the 1950s, right? But they see the vision of how Orlando can be in 2023, right? He bought his land for pennies on the dollar back then, right? Because nobody saw the vision. But now everybody came on board. Now all the companies and everything else came with them, right? The same thing is just like, do your homework, figure out where the money is going, and then you just follow it. But if somebody's investing tens of millions, hundreds of millions, even billions into an area, you have to start thinking like, they probably know more than I do. So maybe I need to go ahead and scoop up some of these tax deed sales and tax lien sales in that same proximity, in the 5 or 10 minute radius of that location, because it's eventually going to expand. Where real estate isn't going down. If you look at long term, it's not going down, and people want to be close to their jobs, activities, restaurants, good school systems, and they don't want to travel anymore, right? And so people are willing to spend more. The days of gentrification are like, every place is gentrifying. The wealthy and middle class do not want to travel an hour or two to get to work. So the hood in 50 years, name a hood. If it's by resources, jobs, airports, those types of things, it will not be the hood in 50 years. So don't look at a property now and say, I wouldn't live there. You don't have to live there. Somebody has to live there. You can do like this gentleman said and just hold it, right? Do not sell. Never sell a piece of real estate unless it's to buy more real estate, right? And to double up and things like that. But for the most part, I say don't sell. I only sold, I named the property I sold. I only sold that property so I can get out of land and buy a condo cash, something that's going to produce income on a monthly basis. That's the only reason I sold that property, right? Because I was using one thing to buy something else. So, but thanks for your points, Mr. Thomas, because they're spot on.
Awesome response.
Can you talk about health and how it equates to wealth?
Oh yeah, that's one of the things, and it's on my album. Health is wealth because time's your greatest asset. That's one of the last lines on my album from the first album. And so a lot of people don't necessarily think of health and wealth, and I'll give you an example of how that's true, right? Steve Jobs, I think he died at 52 or 62. I forget what it was, but it was either his early 50s or early 60s, but he passed a billionaire. The only thing that the wealthy can't buy is more time. During the pandemic, I became friends with Chris Gardner. Chris Gardner is a man that the Pursuit of Happiness movie that Will Smith did was made after. And Chris Gardner is the one who shared with me, just like, he's the one who got me thinking about health as wealth. And he's just like, look, I can always make more money. Once you have knowledge, you can always make more money. I can go bankrupt. And this is like facts. I can go bankrupt today, but I have knowledge that I can be a millionaire again because I have the knowledge. So I know how to, it's wash, rinse, and repeat. You take all my money away and I can make it again. But he was the one who said, you don't have time. You can't, the wealthy can't buy time. And so how you get more time is through being healthy, right? There's going to be a third of the US who are diabetics in the future. Right now, it's around 10 or 11% that are diabetic. It's going to be a third of the population who are diabetic. Now, when you're diabetic, you have a higher risk of high blood pressure, cancer, cardiovascular disease, strokes, and a whole bunch of different things, right? Now, if you die, you cannot make money, right? And not unless you have these trust setups and vehicles where it's just going to keep making money for the next generation. But you personally, once you're gone, you have no more abilities to impact your family's wealth, right? And we're doing a lot of things contrary to that. We're drinking sodas, which are acid, right? They not only break down your bones, but they make holes in your stomach called ulcers, right? We're doing things just contrary to, like, we're eating a bunch of fried foods. We're doing a lot of different things, right? We have so many different things that are coming at us, from global warming to racism to all of the different things that are affecting our community, but also other communities, right? The last thing we need to do is to make unhealthy choices. So my students in my classes, I tell them health is wealth. I want you out there exercising. I want you drinking water. I want you doing all the things like, reading books, because knowledge is power, and you need to exercise your mental muscle as well. But if we don't live longer, we don't have the potential to make money. You look at Warren Buffett, who's worth many, many billions. He's also like 85 or 88 at this point, right? Just imagine if Warren Buffett passed away when he was Steve Jobs' age. He would have had 20 to 30 years less to make the money. And the most of his wealth that he has now was over the last 20 or 30 years. So the same way I talk about focusing on the youth in order, because of compound education, just imagine what you can do with compound health, right? Healthy habits, right? And each one of these things are adding minutes, hours, days, weeks, years to your life, right? So as much as I talk about financial literacy, I also talk about health, and so I juice. I have fruit and veggie smoothies every day. I don't eat breakfast. I do intermittent fasting because, like, I have diabetes, high blood pressure, cholesterol. I lost both of my grandparents in their 50s. And the majority of that is, some of it is genetic, but some of it is lifestyle modifications. But to the original point, health is wealth. The longer you live, the more money you can make and the more lives you can impact.
It's a black man Sunday.